Hey there, American Farmsteaders. This is Donna with Hazel Bell Farm.
And Jenny with the Gramstead Family Farm.
And we are coming to you from Northeast Florida as two American farmsteaders doing our best to grow our own food and share our experiences with you in hopes that you will grow a little food of your own.
And today we are excited to have Emily with us from Bridgeacres Farm. Say hey, Emily.
Hey, everybody.
Emily has actually been on with us before.
Yep.
She did a goat episode with us. When was that?
It's been a few months ago, so
Yeah.
go back and look for Keeping Homestead Goats Part 1.
Yes. And so we wanted to have her back on for a part 2 to get a little bit more on the dairy side to give y'all some more info on that. So
Yeah, for the homesteader.
that's right.
Yep. So if you go back and listen to that, she talks a little bit about breeds and just some very basic overall things that goats need. But we want to talk more about, talking to the homesteader more, not necessarily the breeder or the shower, but the homesteader and like what are they looking for? What are they? Why would they want to keep goats in the first place? That kind of thing. So where shall we start?
Yeah, well, you know what? I saw a really funny meme this morning and I screenshot it. So I'm going to pull out my phone real quick because I thought it was hilarious because I wanted to share it with you guys and I should have been more prepared, but hey, I'm not. So
That's how we roll.
that's how we roll sometimes. But it just made me giggle when I saw it. It says, I don't want to adult anymore. I don't even want to human. I just want to goat, jump around randomly, eat what I want, and headbutt anybody who annoys me.
Yeah.
It's pretty accurate.
That sounds like goats. So tell us, Emily, why would somebody want to keep that around?
I think it depends on your personality and what you want. You know, a lot of people want a dairy animal but don't live in a place where they can have something like a cow, or they have dietary restrictions and they do better on goat's milk. There's a lot of people that are finding it's a lot easier for them to digest goat dairy because the molecules are so much smaller.
Right.
It still contains lactose. It's still, it's not a lactose-free milk that a lot of people think it is. But it's much easier to digest for some people.
Right.
They're, I do enjoy their personalities.
Yeah, they are fun and they are cute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are.
They seem to just cause trouble.
I feel like there's a lot of issues that can be avoided by good planning and good infrastructure, and a lot of people don't do either of those before getting the goats. They learn the hard way.
Yeah. And I mean, infrastructure, I feel like we always kind of go back to that. Infrastructure is just so important on a farm to like make it run smoothly and run well. And it really, really helps if you just put a little bit of extra effort and forethought into how you're setting things up.
Yes.
Like I'm really trying to rack my brain right now about how I want to get set up for this dairy cow. Because she's just with all my beef cows right now and like, how do I want to do this? So, and goats are kind of the same way.
Very much so, yeah.
Especially, I guess, if you're milking a couple of them and you have like a whole herd of goats, like moving everybody around and getting everybody where they need to be.
Separating bucks
Yes.
or weaning babies.
And it can be hard to wait because you get excited and you want to bring them there, and you talk to the breeders and you want to bring home the baby goat right then. But it's really best if you can find a couple of breeders, in your area that you can trust, and see their setups and see how it works. It's the same thing with the dairy cow. Before I brought my dairy cows home, I watched Donna do all her trial and error and just kind of learned from her issues.
Learn from Donna's mistakes.
Well, that's how it
Well, yeah,
everybody.
you're right. It
you
does
didn't have
help.
a cow mentor.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't have a cow mentor at all. Anybody I had was purely online, and even goats. Like before I had any goats for dairy for milking, we had goats that were purely for fun. Like our kids just wanted goats to jump around. Eric liked having them to clear some woods, that kind of thing. They just were for fun. And they kidded, and we had some good experience, some not so good experience. But overall, like we didn't do much with them. And so when it came time, like, okay, now we're going to have dairy goats, even though I had dairy cows, I was like, Emily, now you're my goat mentor because I don't know what I'm doing here. And I, just wanted to give them the best care. One of the things that people say a lot, and I've heard you say a lot, is as far as infrastructure goes, is make sure you have good fencing. So
Yes.
what does that mean? When you say make sure you have good fencing, like talk to us about like height or durability, sturdiness. Like
That's the biggest issue. A lot of the things that I see people use is they try to do it cheaply. You cannot do it cheaply and do it well. It's just those two things are mutually exclusive when it comes to building fences. You need to either know what you're doing or hire someone who does to build a fence, because people don't stretch the fence. They want to use welded wire because it's so much cheaper. Well, that's going to break in like 6 months.
oh yeah,
Goats like to rub on fences, and if you get the welded wire, the welds rust so fast they're just going to pop, and then the goats are going to walk through the fence.
and they stand like they like to climb them.
Because they want to reach for leaves, or if you're on the other side, they want to stand on the fence and talk to you. And if it's that welded wire, it's not going to last. The always go for woven wire, and doing something that's like the 4x4 sheep and goat fence. That really is a good quality fence. It's worked really well for us. A lot of people swear that you need the 2x4. We haven't really needed that with ours, as long as it's stretched well. You need those corner posts sunk so that you can stretch it really tight, because if it's loose, it's going to sag and they're going to escape.
They're gonna escape.
They're going to escape. Field fencing can work if it's stretched really tight, but it's not nearly as stable because, the squares get so much bigger, and the baby goats can fit through that. But the 4x4 works really well. 2x4 works great, but it's astronomically
I was
expensive.
gonna say it's pricier.
It's
isn't
so
it?
expensive.
Okay. So like electric fencing would be a no-no for your goats.
Excuse me. Electro netting can work. You have to kind of train them train them to the electric fence. But a lot of people use that inside their regular fencing,
Right.
so that they can rotationally graze, which helps prevent parasites. But electric strands will not work.
No.
No.
Goats will go right through them without hesitation. Won't affect them at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I believe that because I see people do this online a lot, like people that have bigger flocks of sheep. They're using just like a couple of strands of electric wire, and I don't know how they're making it work, because my sheep, they just blow right through that electric wire.
It makes no sense to me that it would ever work.
Yeah. I mean, they would literally just have to touch it with their nose. If they touch it anywhere else on themselves, they're just not even going to feel it.
Right.
They're insulated.
They're insulated.
And the goats aren't as insulated. They just don't care.
They don't
Right.
care.
They're just headstrong.
They
Yeah.
know that once they get through it, they're going to be fine.
Worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like the
It's worth
kid
it.
that's trying to decide if it's worth the spanking. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
It's like my great preemies, Yeah.
Yeah.
It like doesn't matter. It's worth it.
it's worth it. They're bad.
free.
So that, the cattle panels can get a little pricey, but those tend to work really well for larger breed goats and for bucks. They're
Yeah.
a good height. They're really sturdy. They're easy to put up. They're easy to take down if you want to move them around instead of having permanent fencing. We've had really, really good luck with using cattle panels.
Yeah.
Now they're $36 a piece. But
I know they keep on
Yeah.
getting pricier and pricier, but it is good fencing.
you'll never need to replace them.
Is that something? Could you make like a rotational grazing cage out of cattle panels?
Yes.
And move a couple, like maybe 3 goats within. If
You
had,
could even do more than that. When we were trying to decide where we wanted our barn and how we wanted our new property set up, because there was no fencing, there was no infrastructure at all there. That's what we did. We used cattle panels. I think we used 6. And then we had, the Nigerian dwarf buck. So they're a little smaller. You can fit more into a pen. But we moved them, every 3 days. They cleared the land. They didn't have parasites. It actually worked really well. They can get a little heavy. You kind of have to plan ahead and figure out how you're going to set it up. We used T-posts, and our property is sugar sand, so it's pretty easy to pull them out.
Yeah.
And you have to be a little strong to move those. It's not quite as portable as electro netting would be, but it's a lot sturdier and
Yeah.
a lot more foolproof. You can hook them up to tree. We had them like tied with hay bale twine to trees at certain points, and it worked fine.
worked, yeah.
It worked.
That's funny.
Temporarily.
Yeah. And for a portable fence, it worked really well. We built their shelters out of cattle panels, made little hoop houses that looked like Quonset huts and put a tarp over them. Those
Yeah.
things lasted through hurricanes. They are the most portable. It worked super well. You can build a
That's
thing.
awesome.
You can fit probably 10 Nigerians into 3 panels, bent over to make that little Quonset hut thing. And it's totally portable. We did that for the first 2 years that we lived on the property until we built the barn. And if you're wanting to rotate pastures, that's a really good way to do it.
Because, that's a movable structure.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if you could even and it might get a little heavy, but if you're only moving it every couple of days, but frame out the bottom of it and put some big wheels on it
Or
and
skids.
just pull it
Oh,
skids,
right,
like
right.
a chicken tractor
Yeah.
or something.
You could absolutely do that and pull it behind a tractor, pull it behind a
Right.
lawnmower or a 4-wheeler, or just, shoulder it and pull it behind you. That's what we did.
Yeah. I love structures that can move around and, things that you can change up because
Me too.
I know we do that all the time. It's like, okay, we'll do it this way for a little while and okay, that's not working anymore. So let's switch it up.
Right. You get the flexibility and it really makes a big difference.
Yeah.
That's going to be an investment, but it's well worth the
It's worth
investment.
it.
Yeah. Do not do fencing poorly because you will want to tear your hair out. And
Yes. And you'll just be redoing it. You're spending extra time to redo everything and then extra money to redo
Exactly.
everything.
You're going to spend way
Right.
more doing it poorly than you will doing it correctly.
Yeah, we've done some poor fencing and regretted it.
It's always a learning curve, but that's I think the biggest issue people have is that they don't do fencing right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. So you touched on shelter there. So, and you talked about that in our part 1 also, that they need a place to get out of the rain.
Yeah.
They need a well-ventilated space. They need to get up off the ground. But
And
other than that,
As long as they're not in mud, they can be on the ground, but they do
Right.
prefer sleeping off the ground.
Okay.
Well ventilated is one of the massive issues I see too. People want to lock them up to keep them safe from predators, and then moisture builds up and they get pneumonia, and it's entirely preventable. In that respect, they can get other respiratory issues, but that one is very preventable. Just making sure it's well ventilated and closed off on 3 sides. You can get away with 2-sided if it's longer, like the little Quonset hut, hoop houses, but
Right.
3-sided, you want them to be able to get out of the wind, out of the rain. They do not like getting wet.
Like they act like they're going to melt.
They do.
Like 3 raindrops fell. There go the goats.
Run for cover.
Yeah, that's funny. What about diet? So, there's that myth that goats will eat absolutely anything. The old cartoons of the billy goats eating the tin cans and that kind of funny thing. So it's been my experience that is absolutely not true. That I had picky goats. We had goats that did a really good job clearing brush, and they would eat anything. I mean, not like stuff, but I honestly have a cow who will eat anything we leave out. So
They're not nearly as bad as cows about eating stuff they shouldn't.
Okay,
They're way more careful about that. They will strip wiring, but a lot of times that's because they want the copper wire. They're copper deficient.
really,
Yes.
that's interesting.
And so having good loose minerals out, I use a cow mineral because Florida's deficient in everything. And
Yeah.
That's
they
so
can,
funny.
they need the selenium because they'll get white muscle disease. They need the copper, which makes them more parasite resistant, and they need it for immune function. Sheep can't have all the extra copper most of the time. There are exceptions,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Yeah.
having a good quality loose mineral available to the goats is extremely important.
That's the first thing that I tell people about feeding cows too. Minerals
Yeah,
first.
Minerals first. That's super important. And a lot of people will get, the ones at Tractor Supply because that's what's available. My goats would rather die than eat that. They do not like it
My
for
cows
whatever
won't eat
reason.
it.
I don't know what the formula is. They will not eat it. They will eat stuff like Sweet Licks Meat Maker. That's a goat-specific mineral. We use VitaFerm Conceptade, the cow mineral, at our farm, and that works really, really well. We don't have parasite issues because, of the way we keep the goats, but those minerals are vitally important for parasite control. And then hay, we do leave hay free choice. Goats are going to do a lot better on wooded property than pasture. They
Browse. They like
right.
browse.
They will graze, but they can't sustain themselves on just grazing. They do a lot better on browse. So our property is wooded. They do amazing on that because they'll just go out in the woods and eat pine bark off the trees and
They like that
brush.
roughage.
They want the roughage, and it stops them from getting parasites because they're not eating on the ground. You know, if they're grazing, they're picking up worm eggs, they're picking up coccidia. They just do a lot better on wooded lots than they do pastures.
Interesting.
So opposite from cows in that respect. If you have a heavily wooded property,
cows are good. Yeah, they're better grazers. They will browse if they have to, but they much prefer to graze.
And goats are the opposite. They will graze if they don't have any other option, but they much prefer the browse. So, you know, that could help make your decision as far as what dairy animal you want. If you live on, you know, sloping property that's totally wooded, the goats are going to do a lot better on that without you having to change the entire base layer of your farm.
Right. Or put out a bunch of money on feed.
Right. You're still going to do that. There's no getting around. I think just livestock
Somebody
in general.
teach me how to not do that. Oh my gosh.
If you're looking for an animal that can be solely grass fed and, you know, do milk on just grass and no grain, then you're probably looking at specific genetics in dairy cows. You're not going to find that in a goat.
Right.
Goats are going to need a little bit of hay. They're going to need grain to sustain their body condition. They do better on, you know, grain than they do grain free.
That was my next question. Is there such a thing as just a browse fed dairy goat that produces well?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah.
I'm sure people would argue that with me.
Right.
The ones that I've seen where people are trying to do that do not look very good. They are not as healthy, you know. They just don't, they are not going to produce as much. They need the calories. If you're looking for scrub goats, you know, to process for meat, you could probably get away with that. But if you want a dairy animal and you are trying to, you know, have milk for your family, they're not going to produce on just browse without, you know, additional supplementation of stuff.
So, like, what kind of stuff? Like, what kind of grain do you feed then?
I feed a mix because, you know, I have a bunch of different life stages, and so everybody kind of gets something different, and I overcomplicate things. But
that can be fun.
having a basic goat grain mix,
Like, already blended for goats.
yes, blended for goats is a great place to start. There's, you know, you can fiddle with the different brands and all that stuff. Some goats like one brand more than others, but having a goat-specific grain that's balanced in calcium and phosphorus is where you should start before you start fiddling with anything extra. The calcium and phosphorus ratio is really important if you have male goats, because if there's too much phosphorus, that's when they get the urinary stones, the urinary calculi.
Right.
And people think that it's from feeding alfalfa or feeding too much grain. And too much grain can cause it because of the phosphorus imbalance. But if you're feeding a balanced grain, you're really not going to run into the issues that you see with people having these, where they're on high corn diets, you know, or a feed that's not balanced. Like the feed from our local feed mill is not balanced. And if you feed that to male goats, they could, you know, it could cause some serious issues. It's labeled for goats, but it's not balanced in the calcium and phosphorus. So not everybody who's formulating these goat feeds knows what they're doing in that respect.
Right.
It would
and there's like you said, there's so many like life stages. If you're feeding lactating goats, you're probably feeding them differently than dry goats versus male goats, or young goats versus old lady goats.
Right,
know?
absolutely. And, you know, if they're dry and you have a lot of browse, they will probably be fine on that. If they're not, you know, they're not lactating, they're not putting out that extra energy, then a lot of them will do fine on that. My dry does, they get coastal hay and browse, and then they'll get like a handful of feed in the mornings just to keep them in the routine. Kids get a lot more grain and a lot more hay because I want them to grow. I want them to have that, you know, good growth. I don't want them to be stunted. Bucks are very easy to keep. They can exist on browse and air. Like,
In air.
they do much better without a ton of extra stuff, just, you know, with the balance of grain and everything. They get minerals. My bucks have access to coastal hay and a balanced goat grain once a day, but they stay fat, like real fat.
That's funny.
That's how my rams are. I don't really give them, they're getting nothing right now from me. Nothing. And they are great.
Yeah.
But we do have a lot of pasture grass, so.
Yeah, and that sheep are grazers.
Yeah.
So there's another, you know, people could look into dairy sheep if they don't have room for
Yeah.
a cow, but they have grass, or they don't think they could handle a cow, because cows can be, a lot stronger and more to deal with.
Yeah.
Right.
There are dairy sheep. There's breeds of dairy
Yeah.
sheep.
Yeah, I've considered that myself. I mean, not like I'd ever consider getting rid of my dairy cows, but
Right.
that could be fun. Dairy
It could
sheep.
be fun.
So, how much milk are you getting from and I know it's going to vary with breeds and particular does, but on average, how much milk are you getting from your goats?
So I have American Saanens and Nigerian dwarfs.
Okay.
And I have culled for milk production,
Yeah.
but on the same token, I want them to maintain body condition and me not have to throw, $50 bales of alfalfa at them every single day for them to produce. So
Yeah.
mine are, more moderate producing than some people in the nation, but I want them to be able to survive in Florida and me not have to sell a kidney to feed them.
Yeah.
So for the Nigerians, I typically get, between 3 and 5 pounds. I have a couple that will produce up to 6 pounds. So a pound is 2 cups,
Okay.
roughly.
Okay.
When measuring, we typically weigh it, especially when we're doing milk tests. So I have to try and convert it in my head to how much it is.
So eight cups is a half gallon.
Yes. And so that would be
Boy, that was fast,
That was-
Donna.
I've been making a lot of
I'm
cheese.
impressed.
I've been making a lot of
8
cheese
cups
lately.
would be 4 pounds,
Okay.
roughly.
Okay.
So a half gallon.
That's about like
that's
cow
respectable.
milk. It's like 8. I think it's average is
It's off slightly,
8.6
right.
pounds. Or,
That's just a rough estimate.
Mm-hmm.
And for a 60-pound goat to produce, a half gallon or more a day is pretty good, especially if they're getting coastal and browse
That's
predominantly.
a small animal to produce that much
Pound
volume.
for pound, they make more than the cows do.
Right.
They really do, as far as body
Ratio,
weight ratio and
Yeah.
what feed you're putting into them versus what you're getting out. They really, percentage wise, do make more milk for their body size. My Saanen is a first freshener. She's a 2-year-old, so she's going to increase next year. She's still giving me a gallon a day on mostly browse
Nice.
and coastal grain.
Wow.
But coastal and grain.
And she's like the size of a large dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, she weighs, I think when I weighed her, she was like 150 pounds. She
She
maintains
looks
her
like
body
a
condition.
small white deer. That's the best I could say. Like a small deer. Large dog, small deer.
I really do like the Saanen milk too. A lot of people complain about goat milk flavor because they've only ever had the goat milk from the store.
Yeah.
It's completely different when you have it
funky.
yourself.
Yeah.
And people who are milking their goats, if they don't like the way it smells or tastes, it's usually a mineral imbalance. It goes right back to the minerals. What you're feeding them does matter. Alfalfa will make it sweeter. Beet pulp will make it sweeter because of that. It increases the butter fat in the milk. That fiber increases the butter fat. But if they are deficient in zinc or copper or something like that, cobalt, it's going to make their milk taste funky. That's a really good indication that your mineral is not where it needs to be.
Do you ever, so with cows, there's this whole idea of not buying a premixed mineral for your loose mineral, that you put out like a buffet of minerals where they have like different trays
Right.
of here's
Different
the zinc
choices.
and here's the cobalt and here's the copper. And, and the cows, the theory is that the cows know what they need. They will eat what they want. What they
I
need.
essentially do that with the goats.
Is that what
I
you
do
do?
use a mix. I use the Vitafirm mix. And then I also leave out salt because, especially in the summer, their
Yeah.
need for salt increases. And I don't want to risk them overdosing on minerals because they're trying to get that
Get the salt.
So I have loose salt. I use Redmond salt. Leave that out free choice. I have a selenium vitamin E powder that I get from an organic supplier. And it's made to mix in with the feed, but I've been leaving it out free choice for like 6 years now. Nobody has overdosed on it. People tell me all the time I'm going to croak off my goats because I do this buffet thing, and hasn't happened yet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're pretty smart that way.
I leave out zinc free choice. I use Zinpro 40, and a lot of people recommend, that's the only one I've seen that they recommend you top dress with, add a little bit to their feed every day. And I've not seen that cause any issues. I would never recommend anyone top dress selenium or mixed minerals with the feed, because then the goats have no say in what they're taking in and what they need, and you can overdose them easily on copper toxicity. I've seen a couple of people lately post about their goats dying from copper toxicity. Well, most of them were top dressing the feed. Not all of them, but there was
Right.
enough of it happening where I was like, okay, let's let them choose what they want.
Right.
I leave out zinc, and then once a week I will give them kelp, because otherwise they would just eat a 50-pound bag in 30 minutes.
They must
So
really
they
want
get,
that one.
yeah, they get kelp once a week, and then I do the Diamond V yeast as well, and that's a good cobalt supplement, and that really improves the flavor of their milk. I noticed an immediate difference when I started doing the yeast. Their milk got sweeter. It was a
Interesting.
taste testing wise, you almost can't tell the difference between that and the cow milk. I can taste the fact that the cow milk came from a cow, but it's, and the goat milk didn't, but it's very, very mild flavored. Even the Sonnet, people say that Nigerian milk is the best. It's the creamiest, and it is the creamiest, but I actually prefer drinking, if I'm going to drink milk, drinking the Sonnet milk, because it's not quite as thick.
Right.
It's easier to drink for me.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It does make sense. So breed plays a part in flavor, not just diet.
Yes, but diet and mineral supplementation plays the biggest role, in my opinion.
Okay.
The milk handling plays a huge role in the flavor. If you are not being sanitary, it's going to taste funky because you got bacteria in it.
Right.
Yeah.
I am OCD about sanitizing my milk machine and the lines, or if I'm hand milking, really making sure that udder is clean and that my hands are clean and that the bucket is clean, and
Right.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Like, what is your setup for milking goats? Are you milking like in a stanchion?
Yes.
Are you moving them from like one paddock into like the milking area? Like, walk us through your daily milking.
I have a shed because we're still very much in the phase of, oh, look, we got a good deal on this, so we're going to make it work.
Oh, yeah.
Well, building the homestead.
Right, we're building the homestead on a budget.
Yeah.
There's
mean,
no
we're not trying
magical
to break the
supply of
bank.
money in the background over here. So we found, a friend found this shed for me at a chicken farm that was closing, and
Okay.
I just had to pay to move it.
Okay.
And so we paid a company $600 and they moved it. It was already insulated. We slapped a window unit
Right.
in there. I've got half of it as my feed room and half of it is the milk room.
Nice.
So I have my fridge out there. We put in a sink, and
It's pretty awesome. It's what inspired me that I need to do the same thing. I totally copied her. And because we were in the process of setting up our shed as well when you were doing that. And I was so jealous. I was like, she's got this whole indoor space to process milk when it comes in.
Yeah.
And
it makes it so much cleaner. For a long time, I just milked on a milk stand in the barn aisle, but it was dusty and there was flies, and I never sold milk then because I didn't feel like I had a controlled environment enough to do that.
Yeah.
Now my shed has electricity and I'm able to use my milk machine and everything's contained, but I'm milking, 15 to 20 goats at a time. I really need that kind of infrastructure.
Yeah.
If you have a small homestead and you just want 2 to 3 animals to give your family, dairy or whatever, you have pets and you're milking for show, there's different reasons. A small milking stand is, you have to have one, basically. That's not an option to not have one, in my opinion. You need it for trimming hooves. You need it for milking. You need it for if you need to look at the animal for any reason.
Yeah.
Milk stand is vital. We made ours out of pallets.
I was going to say,
You
can
can
do it very
You do not
affordably.
have to go out and spend $600 on a milk stand.
Whoa.
Some of them get very pricey.
Okay.
And they're very nice. But
Our
our pallet ones work just fine.
Not necessary.
I think we have maybe $10 of supplies in them because, the pallets were free and I had used stall mats already. So we cut those to fit on them. And then I think it's just hardware and then a couple of extra things that we added on to make our milk stands. And because we want them to be reinforced. Pallets are often quite flimsy. So we had good pallets with good quality wood, but you can do it very cheaply.
Okay. So milk stand, covered space.
Covered space, very important. That
Well,
hoop house-
because you're going to have to milk no matter what the weather.
right, and
In the rain.
You don't want to be doing it in the rain.
Yeah.
Goodness knows I learned that the hard way. Those hoop houses, you can split them in half. If you have 4 cattle panels bent over to make a long tube, you can have a panel in the middle with a gate on it, like a little walk-through gate, and have your milking stand on one side of that. So you're still covered, and the goat's house is right on the other side, so you just easily lead them through. It can be very simple and very practical. It's very portable. You're going to want to make sure that you have something to put your milking supplies on, though. Don't set them on the ground. That's where there's going to be more bacteria, risk of listeria and E. coli, that kind of thing. I don't play around with that kind of stuff. I'm very particular about milk handling just because I'm doing this for my family to be healthy. I don't want to make everyone sick.
Right. Right.
If you are buying raw milk from somebody, it doesn't hurt to see their milking area and how they handle it, because
it can be a big deal.
It can be a big deal. And so I use a chlorhexidine wash, pre-wash the udder with that. I take a cooler out with hot water and washcloths that, I do bleach those. I try not to use bleach, but I will bleach the heck out of my milking cloths.
Yeah.
And so the clean cloths in hot water with a little bit of dish soap. I learned that one from Donna. Works great. And then I use a chlorhexidine wash. You can buy chlorhexidine by the gallon from the feed store for like $12, and mix your own udder wash solution. It's very effective.
So is that like a concentrate that you're getting?
Yeah, you get it and then you mix it I mix it in a big spray bottle.
So it probably lasts
forever.
a long time.
Yeah,
it's worth the $12.
Oh,
it's
for
like
sure.
half a teaspoon for my spray bottle, and I use probably a little more.
I do
I
too.
don't measure it, but
I probably do a
it
tablespoon, but it's a big
forever.
quart-sized spray bottle.
Right.
And then I spray the udder down. I wipe it. I spray it again. I wipe it again. Make sure the teat orifices are clean. Then, you want to make sure your hands are clean. Wearing gloves is not a bad idea, but I always felt like it was kind of wasteful. So I just wash my hands really well.
Yeah.
I monitor the somatic cell counts. That's kind of gives you an idea of where the bacteria levels are in the udder through milk testing.
Okay.
And so in doing that, I'm very comfortable with using my bare hands because I wash them and then when we milk. If you are in a place maybe out where it's a little dirtier and you don't have access to a sink to wash your hands, taking sterile gloves and using those is not a bad idea. Milk into a sterile bucket, keep it covered, keep the flies out of it, and then teat dip afterwards. If you can use the spray to make sure that it's really getting in the orifice, that's fine. But I do find that teat dips afterwards tend to be a little bit more effective. I used to use iodine, and then my skin started reacting to the iodine. I would get a rash anytime iodine touched my skin from overusing it. And so now I just stick with the chlorhexidine and have not had any issues at all with it.
So what kind of teat dip do you recommend then afterwards? Because our new cow has very dry teats, and I know iodine is super drying, and that's not helping her. So I'm shopping.
I do chlorhexidine, and I will add just a little bit of vegetable glycerin to it, and that really helps stop it from drying out their skin. And just use that afterwards, and that has been totally fine for me. I don't have issues with staph. I don't have, they can get those little staph bumps on them. I use it for the cows too, and I don't have any issues with it.
Okay, good to know.
I use fresh teat dip every time, though. I think that's important to say. You can't set it on the shelf and use it again the next day and expect it to be sanitary, right? You got to use fresh every day.
Right.
Yeah. No double dipping.
No double dipping.
Right. So then do you, you use a milk machine?
Yes, I hand milk a lot too, but I do use a milk machine predominantly, especially if I'm milking 20 goats at a time. My hands would fall off.
Yes. Right. Yes.
And so I really like the enclosed system. I like that it keeps the milk extra sanitary. There's not hair in it. I do use a strainer afterwards with disposable milk filters. I feel like that's important to really make sure that everything is where it should be. But I really enjoy the machine.
Yeah.
It's worth the investment.
How long does that take you to milk 20 goats?
I can milk 20 goats in about an hour.
Wow.
With the machine.
With the machine.
That's impressive.
Because I have 2 milk stands set up. So I will clean the goats, hook them up, run back out, get 2 more. I tie them right outside the milk room, come in, pull the milk machine off, strip, sanitize, put those 2 out. It's like an assembly line.
Right. And they all behave themselves and
they line up at the gate.
Don't kick off inflations when you run out and
some of them will. The first fresheners tend to be a little more funny about it, especially if they're older. My yearlings, they learn super fast. They line up and they're fine. But recently I got a doe that was 4 as a first freshener. That did not go well. She is nuts. She's absolutely, I pulled her kids and milked her twice a day for 6 months. And at the end of the 6 months, it was like day one. It was the biggest struggle I had ever had. I have never
She
had
just
that kind
didn't
of
want to
issue.
do it.
She did not want to do it.
Yeah,
And
that's funny.
Bye-bye.
she did much better hand milking than she did with the machine. And if I didn't really love this goat and her genetics, she would have been bye-bye. She gets one more pass because
Right.
I really want those genetics. But if it's this kind of struggle again,
Right.
then it will be bye-bye because I
Yeah.
don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Right. What about like what are some things that people should have on hand as far as, or like what do they do? You know, I'm on several Homestead pages, you know, on through social media, and so there's a lot of I went out and this animal, whatever animal is down. A lot of times it's goats. Like, what are some things that people should have on hand to try and diagnose a situation and then treat a situation, that emergency care stuff that you can't always run and call a vet for?
Right. Well, I will say having an established relationship with a vet is important.
It's vital.
It's
Yeah.
vital for if you're going to have any kind of livestock. I know that that's not always an option in certain areas. A lot of vets don't want to treat goats. They don't know anything about goats. Some vets give terrible advice about goats. We are really lucky that we have an excellent vet. We have a couple of really good vets in the area that will see goats. And I love my vet. And it's such a peace of mind to know that if I needed something like a C-section or an emergency mastectomy, because we did that recently, that I have such a good vet and I already have the established relationship. Don't wait for an emergency to find a vet because most vets won't see you if you're not an established client,
Yeah.
and your goat's just going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
For things that you don't have time or there's not a goat, a goat vet in your area, there's things to have on hand, second to a vet, or sometimes even better than a vet, is a really, really seasoned breeder that knows what they're doing, that has seen it all before and is willing to help you. People find a mentor. And if someone is mentoring you, I kind of touched on this the last time we talked, don't waste their time. Like,
Yeah.
if you are taking up someone's time and they're giving you advice, you don't have to take all the advice, but at least try it.
Right.
Don't waste
Right.
their time. Try to compensate them for their time. And, because having that mentor there when an emergency hits is invaluable.
Yeah.
Having somebody to show you in person how to disbud your goats if you choose to disbud, very important. I learned from watching YouTube, and I wouldn't recommend that. I do not recommend that.
That is brave.
We got through it, but it's much easier if you have someone to show you in person.
Right.
Yeah.
So vet and mentor, top
Yeah.
two biggest things for success if you want to raise goats.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Community is so important.
So
in,
important.
In homesteading and having farm animals.
Yes.
It is super important.
And I bounce stuff off of other breeders that I'm friends with all the time. Like, hey, how did you treat this? Or,
Right. What do you think about this?
right. Even if they're not local to you, Facebook is really good because you can network with so many people. And there's a lot of really helpful groups about goats on Facebook. There's one group that some people aren't crazy about, but I have found extremely invaluable as far as the accuracy of the information and their willingness to help out in emergencies and their understanding that not everyone can afford or access a vet, is the Successful Goating with Rosie group. Love that group. Very helpful. If you want to get goats, join that group first. Don't panic. There's a lot of sick goat posts, but that's because people post when they have an
When they have a
emergency.
problem.
They're
Right.
not posting when everything is going great and dandy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
keep that in mind. Don't panic. But that group is one that I would join and read and read and read to decide if you even want to get goats. Because once you get the goats, that's not really the time to decide you don't want the goats.
Right.
Sometimes you can't know until you get them that you don't want them. But I feel like going in armed with as much information as possible is really going to help you with success. And they have lists. There's multiple groups that have lists, but that has charts for medication you should have on hand, dewormers,
Nice.
antibiotics, the dosage per weight. Like, they have all of that already written out for you, so there's no guessing.
Yeah.
That's when you have an emergency, having a chart that you can print out and say, okay, penicillin is typically 1 cc per 20 pounds twice a day for goats.
Right.
Instead of
Or-
having to Google it and get
Right.
27 different answers.
Filter through the
And
information.
talk to a vet who doesn't know how to treat goats, who gives you the improper dosage, because I've had that happen before. That it's very helpful.
Or like, is it safe for pregnant mama?
Right.
You know, or
some vets have no idea. There's
Right.
dewormers you cannot use for pregnant,
Right.
pregnant animals in general. And so that group specifically has the best charts in my opinion.
Yeah, I use those charts actually for my sheep from that same
Yeah.
group, and I have used it as a base for the cows and have run them by both of our good local vets whom we use, and they've both said yes, that's absolutely correct.
And everything in that group has been backed up when I've talked to the vets about it.
Nice. So we will make sure to put a link.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be very helpful for people.
We'll
I
put
really
a link
do
in the
appreciate that group.
description. Yeah. That way, if any of y'all want to access that group,
It's very helpful.
you know where to find it. And then even like your minerals that you were using and suggesting, maybe we can throw up a link to that too.
Yeah,
I
I
could
meant
do
to
that.
ask, where do you source your minerals from?
I get the Vitaferm from a local feed mill in our area, but you can look it up. You can look up distributors for the Vitaferm Conceptate on their website. Sweet Licks Meat Maker, a lot of farm stores sell that. A lot of feed stores sell that. Those two are probably the best ones. Vitaferm actually makes a goat mineral too. It's called Duraferm, but I feel like it's not quite what my goats needed for this area.
Right.
People love to tell you, look for a mineral that's designed for your area. Well, do you think that there's really that many goat minerals out there? Do you think that people put that much effort? No, that's not helpful advice. You're going to have to trial and error, see how your goats look. Do they look like they need more zinc? Do they look like they need more copper? A lot of people pour the copper to them when they're actually zinc deficient, and that creates an issue. So having that buffet style mineral thing out there has taken a lot of the guesswork out of it for me because they just dose themselves.
They know what they need.
Yeah. And then, so good minerals, good feed, a relationship with a mentor, good fencing.
Yeah.
And then for an emergency kit, now everything is prescription only as far as
Right.
antibiotics goes. So I
Right.
hope y'all
So
stocked up on that.
Establish that
I
vet
did.
relationship.
Establish the vet relationship because you're going to need it if you need to get antibiotics.
Yep.
The having things like penicillin G with procaine. That's the long acting. You need the long acting for goats. Their metabolisms are too fast. You cannot use the regular penicillin. So having that on hand, that works for a lot of things. I think a lot of people underdose it and you have to give it twice a day because their metabolisms are so fast. I've not found it to be the fact that penicillin doesn't work anymore. I think it's people are misusing it.
Right.
Keep that on hand. Oxytetracycline, which is biomycin or LA200. I like the biomycin because it doesn't sting. It has an anesthetic agent in it like the penicillin does. Keeping those two on hand, that's very effective for things like chlamydia. If your goats happen to get that, if you got it from an auction or picked it up, from flies at a show, or
yeah.
you can get it anywhere. It sounds super scary, but the
Right.
oxytetracycline works great. Works great for pink eye. Works great for mastitis. These are really two of the best antibiotics to keep on hand for general use.
What about pain meds?
Again, you're going to need a vet.
Right.
Banamine is a really excellent anti-inflammatory. Kind of gets them a little drunk, which sometimes is, you want that. You want them to be a little woozy
them out a
sometimes.
little
Chills them
bit.
out a little
Yeah.
bit. That's a really, really good one to keep on hand. If you don't have access to it, you can use Motrin. Ibuprofen is fine for goats. I think they can have aspirin too.
Like children's Motrin or like tablets?
You can use
or-
tablets, but I've used the children's Motrin because it's easier.
Like liquid.
Yeah. Liquid.
And
You
drench
just-
them?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, for your emergency kit, please get a drenching syringe with a
There you
metal
go.
tip.
There you go.
Please have that before your goats get sick because I have so many people message me and they're like, well, how do I give them the medicine? Well, you have to drench them with it. Well, all I have is this 3 milliliter syringe. That's not going to work.
They're
Go
going
get
to eat it.
my favorite is the 30 milliliter drenching syringe. It's yellow at Tractor Supply with a metal tip.
Yeah.
Get it. Get 3 of them because you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Clean it out afterwards so it's not funky and
Yeah.
plugged up when you need it. Keep them clean. Please. That is like a vital thing for your emergency kit.
Yeah. We use that a lot actually.
Yeah,
For
all the
cows
time.
too. Yeah.
So drenching syringe, the antibiotics, Banamine or Motrin works really well. Let me see what I got here. The needles and syringes.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep them on hand. 18 gauge, 20 gauge needles, 3 milliliter, 6 milliliter, 12 milliliter syringes. I'm like a vet supply store right now with all the stuff I stocked up on because you never know when you're going to need it.
Right.
And I have had the opportunity to help people who were having an emergency that the vet couldn't get to them in time. And, that 12 hours before the vet can get there, that's an important time slot.
Can be
and so
life-saving
I just
time.
like to have everything on hand. I like to be prepared. I keep things like activated charcoal on hand because if
that's a
there's
good one.
any poisoning, if there's any suspicion of that, that's the first thing you give them. Charcoal, milk of magnesia, because that's going to give them diarrhea, but it's going to pass that stuff through without them absorbing as much of it.
Right.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, milk of magnesia is excellent if you think there's poisoning that's happened.
Okay.
What else? Spectogard, which is, again, you're going to need a prescription now, but if you have an animal with bowel distress, diarrhea, that kind of thing, if it's bacteria related, that has been the best thing I've found. It works for E. coli. My goat kids got Campylobacter from my neighbor's auction steer. That was a whole issue a couple of years ago. And the combination of antibiotics with the Spectogard orally is what saved the ones that didn't die.
Wow.
What else?
What about like parasite wormers?
Get a microscope because vets don't have time or will charge a lot of money to run fecals now. I think I saw somebody quote that it was like $45 per sample to have a vet run fecals. Get a microscope. Here's another Facebook page for you to link.
Okay.
Animal fecal microscopy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They do all kinds of animals. They teach you how to run your fecals.
Wow.
You can buy a whole kit for fecal testing your animals with a guide and a microscope for like $250.
Right.
Get the microscope. It is
Yeah.
worth the investment.
Yeah.
It's been the best tool. My kids learn a lot from it.
I
They
bet.
love looking at that kind of stuff. That is super important tool because then you know what the parasite is.
Right. You
And
know
how
And
to
then
treat
you,
it.
how to treat it,
Instead
and then
of
you can
just
test
throwing
again.
stuff at 'em.
Exactly, you
Right.
test again to see if your treatment is working.
Right.
So, okay, ivermectin still works at my farm. A lot of people say it doesn't work anymore on barber pole worms, which is the one that is very commonly killing
Right.
goats. Well, I know from running fecals that it still works at my farm. If I dose with ivermectin, it kills over 90% of the worms on the slide. So I use that until it doesn't work anymore because I don't want the resistance issues.
Right.
And the current recommendation, I have another website for you.
Okay.
The American Consortium for Small Ruminants.
Okay.
I think the website is like worminfo, wormx.info,
We'll find it
something
and
like
we'll-
that.
we'll
Yeah, it's the
link it in the
Consortium
show
for Small
notes.
Ruminants.
Okay.
They have all the studies on things that have, they've experimented with to see if it works for small ruminants. Things like pine bark is an excellent thing to prevent parasites because of the condensed tannins in it.
Yeah.
Things like the copper oxide wire particles. They have all the scientific studies to back this up. Orange oil, that works for parasites as well, specifically the barber pole worms. So that has a lot of really good, helpful information as far as learning about parasite prevention instead of just treatments.
That's cool.
I think the current recommendation is to use 2 or 3 wormers from different classes at the same time. So that would be like
Yeah.
a white dewormer with the ivermectin, like Safeguard or Valbazin. But you can't use Valbazin on pregnant animals, so you
Right.
better have a plan.
Right. All of those are listed on that successful goat.
Yes, she has the
Successful Goating
dosages
Rosie,
and
yeah.
how to use all of those things.
Right.
I really
That
have
Facebook
that
page.
Facebook
Yeah.
page.
They make it simple.
They make it so simple and tangible. There are files where you can just go in and download all these charts and print them out and keep them in your shed. Like keep it in your emergency kit. They have
Yeah.
the doses for everything. And I have not found anything that was not dosed accurately on those charts. They're the most up-to-date information. I have benefited from that group so much. And it's free.
it's
These people
free,
are spending,
right.
they're answering questions. They're spending hours to help people because they want them to be successful.
Right.
And it's free. So people can say what they want, but
Yeah.
They're
No,
really-
I mean, that has a lot of value.
Yes.
A lot of value.
and just keeping stuff like the charcoal on hand. You might not think about that, but they do discuss that in that group, and the milk of magnesia. If you can find it, keeping the Clostridium antitoxin, the C&D antitoxin on hand. It's not the toxoid, that's the vaccine. The antitoxin on hand, because if they do you get Clostridium, you want to have that on hand already. You can't wait to order it online and have it come in 3 days.
Right. You'll have dead goats.
Your goat will be dead by then.
Yeah.
And just put eyes on your goats every day, twice a day. You don't have to do a full body check on everybody, but if you know their personalities, you're going to know that something is off. That you're going to know that, okay, this person's usually really pushy and they're kind of standing off today. Let me take their temperature.
Right.
Taking
A
as another
thermometer.
one, 2 thermometers. You need 2 good thermometers in your emergency kit because inevitably, if you have one, when you need it, the battery is going to be dead, or
Right.
your kid will have carried it off.
Right.
Keep 2. I really, really like the Vicks Vapor Rub thermometers. They're like $14 at Walmart, but they are fast and they are accurate. And I have, I think, 8 of them somewhere.
Somewhere.
All over because
Here and there.
because exactly, and I have to write human or goat on them so they don't get cross
Oh, yeah.
contaminated.
Make sure it's marked appropriately
But
for sure.
thermometers, very important, because the first thing the vet or your mentor is going to ask when you tell them your goat is sick is, what's the rectal temperature?
Yeah, and that's the first thing the vet does when they come
Is take a temperature because you have to have that information. Does the animal have a fever? Do they have a low body temperature? Because low body temperature could indicate hypocalcemia, low calcium. The high fever, could it be poisoning? Could it be, pneumonia? Pneumonia can be very aggressive and out of nowhere. Mastitis, they're gonna have a fever usually.
right.
That's a really valuable tool, and it's very inexpensive.
Very-
Get
yeah.
at least
Right.
2.
Yeah,
Right.
very easy first step. I think that's a good last word. Honestly, I mean, just to know your animals,
Know your animals.
see them regularly.
Don't wait till they're flat out on the ground screaming in pain to call someone for help.
Right.
Act when you notice something is off, because you can't just dismiss it as, oh, they'll get over it, because they're prey animals. They're going to hide when they're sick. So when you notice they're sick, they've already been sick for a little while.
Yeah.
Act. The minute you notice something is wrong, take their temperature, check their FAMACHA score, which is the
Right.
color of the eye membranes for
Right.
parasite that indicates anemia. Run a fecal. All of these things, yes, they are investments up front, but if you want to be successful and you want to have low stress,
Yeah.
that's what you got to do.
Well, and just know that if you're going to have these animals, you're going to be spending money.
Yeah, there's no getting
I
around
mean-
it.
Yeah, the animal is actually the cheapest investment in
Yes.
this whole deal.
If you are trying to do this to save money, don't buy
No.
milk from somebody else
Yep.
because you're not going to save money.
yeah, totally. All right, well, anything else?
I mean, I'm
Sad.
sure we could keep going.
I
sure
could definitely keep
too.
going, but
I know.
for time's sake,
I know. Ask a goat breeder to talk about goats.
yeah,
Ask
we'll do it all day.
But hey, we can always do a part 3.
We could. I'm sure we'll have her back one day for something.
Yep.
All right. I think that's good, right?
It was good, y'all.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thanks for having me back.
Emily. Y'all go
Thank you.
check out Bridge Acre Farms.
Bridge Acres.
Bridge Acres Farms. She's on Instagram and Facebook and her website. She is a reputable breeder, and see all her pretty little critters there.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks. Bye.